Dr. Henry Morgentaler is hosting a conference in Toronto this weekend on abortion. He's teaching the latest techniques to other physicians. The conference is the first of its kind in Canada, and it's exactly the sort of thing that Morgentaler promised to organize when the Supreme Court struck down Canada's abortion law. Regina Hickel-Szabo reports.
Outside a downtown Toronto hotel, a small group of anti-abortion demonstrators. A reminder that there are Canadians who oppose abortions of any kind, under any circumstances. Inside, Dr. Henry Morgentaler welcomes 40 family doctors and obstetricians to his conference. He wants them to learn the latest techniques.
For some reasons, Canadian doctors were generally not willing to learn about new and more modern abortion techniques. Now, after the Supreme Court decision, this is possible to do.
That's what this two-day conference is all about. Morgentaler isn't waiting for the government to draft a new abortion law. He's encouraging other Canadian doctors to do what he's been doing for the past 20 years.
We want it to be as painless as possible, okay?
He says they too can perform abortions in their own offices and clinics. The procedure, he says, is safe, but still it can be trying for physicians.
They're the ones who have to do it. And it's not a procedure people like to do. There's not a lot of satisfaction from doing it.
It's also an issue many Canadians have trouble coming to terms with.
When it comes to a controversial issue, people want to talk about it and people want to make changes.
The turnout here was small today, but still it was something of a milestone for Dr. Morgentaler and the pro-choice movement. Morgentaler's won his legal battles. Now he wants to convince other doctors to make abortion more accessible to women. Regina Hickel-Szabo, CBC News, Toronto.
A massive forest fire near Rocky Mountain House in Alberta is still burning out of control tonight. It's already forced more than 650 people from their homes, and they're going to have to spend another night in emergency shelters. The people manning the fire line say some headway was made today, and they're hoping to bring the fire under control within the next day or so. It's the largest fire to hit Alberta this year. The RCMP is trying to find out if it was deliberately set. It started on Wednesday in a reserve about 200 kilometers southwest of Edmonton and has been spreading ever since. Erratic winds have made the job all the more difficult for firefighters. And already 22,000 acres of timberland have been burned black. A group of Coca-Cola bottling company workers in New Brunswick today marked 1 year on the picket line. It's an anniversary they thought they'd never see. They walked off the job in a fight over seniority rights. But now the battle is over the union's very existence there. In a rare move, workers who were hired to replace the strikers have asked that the union be decertified, and the Canadian labor movement is watching closely. Our labor specialist, Alan Garr, reports.
Morning on the picket line in Moncton has become a routine in a labor dispute that has become exceptional. Each day at 6, the first shift of men arrives, and then they begin to move along the same tight, endless oval that they've followed for the past year.
Like I moved from Nova Scotia up here, and this is the first time I've ever had anything like this happen, but it'll be all for the good, I think.
It's the first strike for all of them. The new owner took over this franchise operation in 1980. The union came in 2 years later. It's been a state of war ever since. This bitter strike began when that new owner demanded an end to seniority rights.
They hire a relative to infiltrate our union back in '82 and laid off 32 employees.
The owner won't comment on those allegations or any others, but he has said that he fired most of the strikers because of incidents on the picket line. Incidents the union questions.
Where's your paper bag to hide your face?
1/3 of the people who worked at the Moncton plant before the strike now crossed the picket lines. And this week, a group of strikebreakers went to the Industrial Relations Board. They won't comment, but they do want the union decertified. It is an unprecedented demand in New Brunswick and an extremely rare demand anywhere else in Canada. Meanwhile, the Canadian Labour Congress has begun to pressure Coke. It wants Coke to force the franchise holder back to the bargaining table. The Congress is threatening a national boycott of Coke products.
If anything's going to happen, I think that's what'll make it happen for us.
The Canadian Labour Congress is reluctant to launch its boycott. Labor relations between Coke and the unions that deal with it directly are good. But the CLC also faces the possibility that the strikebreakers will succeed in their attempt to decertify the union at this Coke franchise. And that precedent will create a far greater problem for the labor movement in this country than any hard feelings between an employer and its unions. Alan Garr, CBC News, Moncton.
And that's the National for Saturday, May the 28th. Join us tomorrow night for Sunday Report with Peter Mansbridge. For CBC News, I'm Sheldon Turcott. Good night.
This is CBC Television.